Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive.
Yeah, welcome.
Today, we're going to dig into something I think a lot of us are curious about, especially if you're creative.
Definitely.
It's all about that intersection of money and art. Like, how does that work?
Right.
You know, it's a fascinating world, and whether you're an artist yourself, trying to navigate how to actually turn your passion into a living.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're just intrigued by how a painting can sell for millions of dollars.
It's crazy, right?
We're going to break it all down.
Absolutely. Should be interesting.
So, to guide us through this, we're going to be using this really interesting podcast script outline we got our hands on called Money and Art, where creativity meets commerce.
Oh, catchy, right.
I've actually seen this one floating around, and it's got some good stuff in it, for sure. Yeah, it dives into a lot of different aspects, but the one I thought was the most interesting start point was the question, what gives art its value?
Yeah. Because, on the one hand, you've got this creative energy, the skill it takes to create something, the way it captures a moment in time.
Right.
But then there's this whole other side, supply and demand, how famous the artist is, maybe even just pure luck. All of those things play into how much a piece is actually worth, in dollars and cents.
Yeah, and I think that's what trips people up sometimes. It's like, how can you put a price tag on something that's so subjective, right?
Okay,
Like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Exactly.
But then you have a painting like Leonardo da Vinci's Salvator Mundi, which sold for, what was it, over $450 million a few years back. It's mind-boggling.
Oh, I know. That one really shook things up. But, you're talking about Da Vinci, possibly the most famous artist ever, a work with this huge religious and historical significance.
Right.
Plus, it was considered lost for centuries. So suddenly it's like this artifact, this piece of history, a status symbol, it goes way beyond just a pretty picture.
It's almost like owning a piece of a legend, And speaking of legends, the outline also talks about Banksy and Picasso.
Oh, yeah. Classic examples.
Their names alone just add, zeros to a price tag.
Totally. It's like their reputation becomes part of the artwork itself,
Yeah.
Like Banksy with the mystery, the street art, the whole rebellious thing.
Right.
And then you have Picasso, he practically invented modern art. So that's got to be worth something.
And this is where things get even more interesting, I think, with all this digital art popping up.
Oh, yeah, the NFTs, right.
Because how do you put a value on something that can, theoretically be copied 1,000,000 times over?
Exactly. That's what makes it so crazy.
It's such a different world from, a one-of-a-kind painting.
It really is. And for a while there, it was like, how do you even begin to value this stuff? But then NFTs came along.
Right.
And suddenly you could prove ownership in this digital space. And it, flipped the script.
Yeah. It was like the art world woke up to this whole other dimension of art.
Oh, for sure. Collectors, they jumped right in. That Beeple piece that sold for, was it $69 million?
$69 million.
For a digital image? That really showed everyone this was serious business.
That must have been a huge wake-up call for artists who were used to the traditional ways of doing things, galleries and all that.
For sure. It really shook things up.
So let's get into that. How does an artist actually make a living today? With all these new platforms, the digital art explosion, everything we've been talking about.
Well, you got to be adaptable. It's not just about selling a physical painting anymore,
So what's the secret sauce? What do artists need to be doing?
It's all about diversifying, those income streams. Think about licensing your art for merchandise.
Okay, yeah, that would be...
Or selling prints, teaching online courses, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The internet's been huge for that.
And then you have platforms like Etsy, Selfie, Patreon. These are popping up everywhere.
Absolutely. They're game changers. Etsy, is great for that handmade, vintage vibe. Selfies more for digital stuff, subscriptions, that kind of thing. And then Patreon.
Yeah, what about Patreon?
That's all about building a community. Fans can subscribe and support your work directly, get exclusive content.
So it's about finding the right platform for the type of art you're creating, but also it's about...
what kind of relationship you want to build with the people who, connect with your art,
It's like you're not just an artist anymore. You have to be an entrepreneur, a marketer.
It's a whole different ballgame these days.
It's fascinating how much the art world has changed, even in just the past few years. And it makes you wonder, how has all of this merging of art and business, this online presence, how's it affecting the art market as a whole?
Right, because it's not just a hobby anymore. It's a big-time global market.
it's a huge part of the global economy, and that's something I think a lot of people don't realize.
Totally, and that's what we'll unpack next time.
It's a huge part of the global economy, and that's something I think a lot of people don't realize.
It's true, yeah. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. We're talking billions and billions of dollars changing hands.
Exactly. And it's not just about like those big auction houses anymore either, right?
Not at all. I mean, those are still a thing, don't get me wrong, and they're like the public face of this whole art as investment thing.
Right.
But there's a whole ecosystem that's grown up around it.
Right.
Online platforms, smaller galleries, private collectors.
So it's like art has gone from being purely about aesthetics and expression to being
To an asset class.
exactly like
Yep.
real estate or stocks.
Exactly. People are buying art because they think it'll increase in value over time.
So it's not even necessarily about liking the piece, right? It's more about
Strategy.
yeah,
Seeing it as an investment opportunity.
yeah,
Which, some people might think is kind of, I don't know.
soul crushing.
Yeah, a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
where's the passion? But it's just a different way of looking at it, I guess. And it makes sense in a way because,
Because art is finite, right?
exactly, there's only one original Mona Lisa, right? So as long as people keep valuing that, the price is just going to keep going up.
It's like supply and demand, but on a whole other level.
Totally. And then you've got the whole historical significance thing. Owning a piece of art, especially if it's by a famous artist, it's like owning a little piece of history.
And that has value, right?
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Big time. And I think for some people, it's also about status,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like being able to say, oh, yeah, I've got a Picasso hanging in my living room.
It's a statement.
Totally.
Yeah.
It says something about your taste, your knowledge.
Your bank account.
Yeah, that too. But okay, so with all this talk of art as an investment,
Yeah, how do they even decide what's worth investing in? Like, who are these people making these decisions?
the million-dollar question. And honestly, it's this kind of, I don't know, mysterious process.
Really, like a secret formula or something.
I wish. But there are a few things that play into it, like provenance is huge.
Provenance.
Yeah, basically it's the artwork's history. Like who owned it before, where it's been exhibited, if it's been written about in books or articles.
So it's got to have like a good backstory.
Exactly, like a pedigree. It proves it's the real deal, not some like forgery or something.
Yeah, makes sense. What else?
Well, the artist's reputation obviously plays a role. Like if they've got a long and successful career, if their work is in museums.
Yeah, that tracks.
And then there's just like the artwork itself.
Yeah.
Is it in good condition? Is it aesthetically pleasing? Does it represent a particular movement or style?
So it's like a combination of factors, but a lot of it seems kind of subjective too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no like foolproof formula. It's a combination of knowledge, gut instinct, maybe a little bit of luck.
But with all this focus on like high-end art and these million-dollar sales, I kind of feel for the artists who are just starting out,
Oh, yeah.
trying to make a name for themselves, trying to navigate this crazy world.
It's tough out there, for sure.
Because the art world, let's face it, it's not always glamorous.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all heard that phrase, starving artist. And while it's a bit of a cliche,
There's definitely some truth to it.
there is, yeah. It can be a real struggle, especially financially.
It's tough out there for sure.
Yeah, it can be a real grind, especially when you're just starting out and trying to, like, find your footing.
And I imagine one of the biggest challenges is that whole financial instability thing, right?
Oh, tell me about it. It's like feast or famine, 1 minute you sell a piece for a decent amount,
Yeah.
and then you're, like, wondering when the next paycheck is coming in.
It's hard to plan for the future when you don't know where your next meal is coming from, right?
Right, and that's something that the outline actually talks about, like how to manage that irregularity.
Mm-hmm.
They suggest, like, building up savings during those good times.
Smart.
So you have a cushion for when things inevitably slow down.
It's like you have to be your own financial planner almost.
Totally. And, it's not just about saving either. It's about finding those other income streams we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Teaching, freelancing.
Right. Using your skills in different ways.
Exactly.
Oh.
And not just for the money either. It can help you, like, build your network.
Get your name out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, sometimes even those side hustles, they can spark new ideas for your art too.
It's like diversifying your income streams can actually make you a more well-rounded artist.
Totally. And, it all ties back to that balance we were talking about before between, like, the creative side
Right. Yeah.
and the whole commerce thing.
That whole selling out dilemma. It's like, how do you stay true to your artistic vision
Yeah,
while also, like, paying the rent?
exactly. And that's a tough one.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer. But I did think the outline had some good advice on that.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
They talked about finding those patrons, those collaborators who really get you, you know?
Right. People who believe in your work both artistically
Yeah, yeah,
and they see its potential in the market.
exactly. But, finding those people, it takes work.
Networking, putting yourself out there,
Exactly.
it's not always easy.
And, it's not just about private individuals either. There are all sorts of funding opportunities out there.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Grants, residencies.
Oh, right.
Some of them are even government funded.
Interesting. See, that's something I wouldn't even know where to start with.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a maze to navigate,
Hmm.
but the rewards can be huge, not just financially,
Right.
but also like the recognition.
Validation.
Exactly. And, with residencies, you get that time and space to just focus on your art.
That sounds kind of dreamy, actually.
Oh, it can be amazing. To be surrounded by other artists, to have that dedicated time to create, it can be a real game changer.
It's like hitting the refresh button on your creativity.
Totally. And I think it just goes to show that, success in the art world, it's not just about like being talented.
Right.
It's about understanding the business side,
Right.
knowing how to promote yourself, how to navigate the financial realities. It's a whole different skill set.
So what I'm hearing is if you want to make it as an artist today,
Yeah.
you got to be a bit of a chameleon. You got to be adaptable.
Totally. You've got to be willing to wear different hats, try new things.
Embrace the hustle.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, sometimes the biggest risks lead to the biggest rewards. Who knows? Maybe that crazy idea you've got brewing in the back of your mind, maybe that's the one that's going to take off.
That's a good note to end on. I like that. So for everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has given you some things to think about.
Yeah.
Whether you're an artist yourself or just someone who enjoys art and wants to understand it on a deeper level. Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
art is for everyone, right?
Absolutely.
It's a way to connect, to communicate.
To make sense of the world
Exactly. So keep exploring, keep creating.
and keep supporting the arts.
Yes. Until next time.